understands and can see what is possible under
has been.
But we also spoke with sources from the Obama years who said in the cabinet meetings for former President Barack Obama, those were never this meticulously scripted.
Do you believe that there is one with President Biden on the Democratic ticket?
What I've said is that I think that if things stay as they are, it's likely that Donald Trump will win the election and it will lose the Senate and will lose the House.
The Biden campaign is testing Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump in the 2024 election. We'll see if that works out for him. But the numbers might cause them to make a change. Are they going to suddenly say Kamala's better than Joe and say, Joe, you got to step aside? The Biden campaign would do that to themselves? Or is it more likely that they're going to show that Kamala is a disaster herself and would be terrible to put up against Donald Trump? She might even lose more than Biden. So Joe could pull Kamala and support his continued attempt at the presidency. Now, this was breaking news. A lot of people saying, well, maybe they're going to make a change. Maybe this means something. Maybe this could be a hint to Joe that he should change course. Somebody just needs to talk to him. We've already seen this happen many times. Many Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and others saying, well, there's still time for him to decide. We all say, hey, he's already written a letter. His campaign spokesman has come out. Jill has come out. Kamala's coming out. They're all saying he's not going anywhere. So what makes you think it's going to change? Maybe the polling that shows Kamala is going to obliterate Trump will help? They wish.
But the reporting is it involves the Biden campaign, and they are assessing the viability of a candidacy by the vice president. Let me bring in Monica Alba. Monica, what can you tell us about how they're looking at Kamala Harris and why?
Well, NBC News is confirming this was first reported by the New York Times, Chris. But what's significant here is that I'm told by a source that's familiar with this testing that is going on this week that this is being done in the context of trying to assess how she would fare against the presumptive Republican nominee as a direct result of what we have seen Donald Trump do in the last couple of days, which is to step up his attacks against her specifically, given there are questions about whether Joe Biden will still be the Democratic nominee in November. He insists that he will, but of course we know, as you were just discussing, because of this pressure from other Democrats and lawmakers, that there could be a change here if the president decides to step aside. So the Biden campaign is doing this. I understand that this is being commissioned by the Biden campaign's own analytics team. And importantly, and what we should point out here, and what a Democratic operative told us, is that essentially this is something you would be doing if you're trying to give a message to President Biden to sort of test how the vice president would do and whether she may fare better, worse, or the same as he is doing in the current polling. That this would be a data point that you could maybe show to the president as he, in the weeks ahead, could potentially have difficult conversations about his candidacy. Again, the Biden campaign is saying that he is full steam ahead. That is what they're certainly insisting publicly. But I think this is a concession that there are larger conversations going on about if there would be a change at the top of the ticket, and that the natural person, as we've been talking about, the mechanisms for how this would work would be Vice President Kamala Harris. So that is the next sort of part of this story in terms of how she would do. And there has been some polling out there already where they've been trying to sort of test how she would do against Donald Trump. But obviously the Biden team, for their own interests, wants to have their own assessment, and that is why they're going to be continuing with that polling. It sounds like at least this week, and then we'll see what the actual results of that. But we should also point out, Chris, that according to a memo that we obtained today, the Biden campaign and senior advisors are saying that, yes, they're acknowledging there has been real movement in what we've seen in the polls, certainly in those battleground states since the disastrous debate performance 2 weeks ago. But they're insisting that it doesn't amount to a sea change in the state of the race. And so, again, they are trying to argue that Joe Biden is still their candidate, still the nominee, still the person that they're going to go on this journey with. But it is notable that they are zooming out and taking this larger picture should that change.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's going to be curious to see what those numbers show. I have not seen any numbers anywhere that show Kamala is going to rout Trump in 2024. In fact, I don't think there are numbers like that anywhere for anybody, which is the problem for them. If they had a candidate, they'd already have a candidate. If they had somebody who could come in here and change this course for them, they'd have done it already. They'd be clamoring for somebody, anybody. There's even people saying Michelle's going to come and do it. And they're like, no, we're not. It's not going to be Michelle, right? But they don't have anybody. If they had someone that was 10 points up on Trump, we'd already know who that person is. So that's what is happening on MSNBC. Now, there's also some clips of Kamala. Here is what our next candidate might be sharing with us. And get ready to be inspired, America. Here is your new Democratic nominee, maybe.
As some of you may know, my parents met while they were active in the civil rights movement.
Okay, so that was not very inspirational. That was a protest that took place there. I think this is the inspirational clip here. So brace yourselves. Now you must be inspired from our new potential Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, who, to be fair, I keep making the point that Joe Biden is very representative of Democrats. That's why they like him so much, because he represents who they are and how they are. But if Joe Biden is not at number one, another good representative for Democrats, all of them in America, is Kamala Harris. Get ready to be inspired, America. Here it comes.
They taught us that we could do anything.
Yes.
And should never be burdened by the limitations of other people to be able or not be able to see what can be.
Yes.
And this is that community who understands and can see what is possible unburdened by what
Has been. Yes.
They taught us that
Oh, she nailed that line. I got goosebumps all over the place. Unburdened by what has been, so we can be burdened by new burdens to come under the Biden regime. All right, so that's Kamala. I can't wait for her to run. So, either way, it doesn't matter. Like, they're doomed. It's not looking good for them. They're going to try to rig it. Kamala at least brings in a plausibility. At least, we activated the first female African-American. Yeah. And there's a whole new contingent. They have some fake narrative. But with Joe Biden, they don't have that. So anyways, the media is furious. They're not happy with this at all. And so as Joe Biden is getting prepared for his big boy press conference, there's all these leaks coming out all over the place. And it's just a ton of fun to watch. I don't think we've seen anything quite like this. Now you have CNN and Jake Tapper, the very entities that were covering up for Joe for the last 3 years, are now just tearing him down, shredding him to bits. So here, this is CNN. Now they're putting all their dirty laundry out there all over the place for everybody to see. It's amazing.
According to two sources,
Yeah.
before cabinet meetings that the president attends, cabinet officials will submit their questions and key talking points and bullet points that they plan to present to the president in these closed-door meetings. This is how one source described it. They said the entire display is kind of an act. They would come and say, hey, the president is going to call on you about 25 minutes in and ask this question. What are the bullet points that you'll respond with? Now, the White House's defense has been that that is standard practice for any administration. They said in a setting like this, you never want the president to be not aware of what is going to be discussed. They want to also just be mindful of the president's time. But we also spoke with sources from the Obama years who said in the cabinet meetings for former President Barack Obama, those were never this meticulously scripted.
What a ridiculous joke. Yeah, it's all just normal operating procedures. And the story is even worse than what she displayed there. You'll notice CNN has more details on this, telling us that a star-studded fundraiser was pretty rough, and they are now angry and stunned. They're blaming Biden's closest advisors from shielding the public from the full extent of the president's decline. It's like, well, they attempted to shield us from it, but we could see it because we just opened our eyes and just looked and watched him. That's all. I don't know what else you need for that. It's like, do you want an explainer? Should somebody get some crayons out here for you and draw it for you? Angry Democrats? Gosh, just open your eyes and watch him for 5 minutes. You'll understand. But they didn't want to do that. You have to take the delusion blinders off. But even before Biden made remarks, there were whispers of concerns rippling through the audience at Peacock Theater. Some of the biggest donors, they still raised $30 million. All these people are sitting around. Nobody wants to say anything because they're, cowardly. He was less cogent than usual, said one attendee. Biden's appearance in California struck attendees. Someone said there's a marked difference in the president from the spring to the summer. Okay, he's just not the same. Yeah, brain went bye-bye. The entire display, watch this one. It says, back in Washington, there have been clear signs throughout the term of Biden being increasingly stage managed, with lists of talking points, names of questioners, and drawings of where he should walk presented to him by aides. Ahead of closed-door cabinet meetings that Biden attends, it's customary for cabinet officials to submit questions and key talking points that they plan to present in front of Biden ahead of time to White House aides. The entire display is kind of an act, okay? Says they would come and say to the cabinet member, so this is like Mayorkas, Attorney General Garland, hey, the president's going to call on you at about 25 minutes, and he's going to ask this question, okay? And what are your bullet points that you're going to respond with? What are you going to say back? So it's just like a show. It's like a play. Remember when you were in like 4th grade? You read these lines, you read these lines. They show up, they do it. And the meetings themselves are infrequent. One cabinet secretary telling CNN they're uncertain of Biden's condition. We don't even know him. We can't even see him. Like, they don't even talk to him. In fact, the last full cabinet meeting took place October 2nd, 2023. Sources said the cabinet meetings during the Obama years were not pre-scripted this way. Didn't happen. Even as the oldest president in history, Biden's halting performance is just going to get worse. CNN talked to more than 24 current and former Democratic officials, donors, and longtime allies, all of whom spoke on condition of anonymity to avoid alienating Biden because they don't want, we can't talk about this. We're petrified. What are they going to do to us? While it's clear the president had aged in the past year, none of them said that they had seen the version of him faltering in days that showed up at last month's debate. All of them are so dumb they can't perceive what we've been watching for years. In many of these conversations, sources blame the president's inner circle of advisors and the family for what they say has become a painstaking and a choreographed daily operation. It's like just a show presidency. There is a deep state that's running the country. There's this general sense that of just unbelievable holding your breath every time he does an event, every time he's with people. We're freaked out. We don't know what the heck is going on. The Democrat was blunt about this. He says this is going to get worse. Everyone who expresses any level of suspicion or contrary views, they call everyone and they beat the crap out of them. And they say, stay on message, just shut your mouth. At least one official involved in the Biden debate prep had doubts about his ability. It's not like the Biden inner circle didn't know this. We knew it. And we're not just guessing, shooting from the hip. We've watched it. Then they told us we were all liars and it was just cheap fakes. We were just making it up. Campaign officials have rejected Clooney and other donors' characterization. They say Biden's great. He's, doing cartwheels. But after 2 weeks of this, they said expect a drip, drip, drip. It's a crisis of historic importance, with growing fears among Democrats that it could drag down the entire party. They're petrified they're going to lose it all. It's erosion across the board. For Biden himself, the coming days are pivotal. The news conference on Thursday today is going to be highly scrutinized. They don't really have a plan B. Who's it going to be? Kamala? She's the only one who could get the money. You can see these are the people who are all in for Biden. Here's a nice little graphic here. Chuck Schumer's all in. Hakeem's all in. It's up to Biden is Pelosi. Richie Torres says Biden won't win. And then you have the Hollywood crew all saying Biden should drop out. And Joe's got the votes. He's got the delegates and he represents the Democrats perfectly. So he should stay in. Plain said he's the sitting president of the United States. What do you want me to do? That's a weird response. Someone said as attendees rode a bus to another venue to hear Obama deliver a speech, the chatter turned to Emmanuel's outburst and shared the view that Biden in 80 was getting in over his skis. Someone said, why doesn't anyone protect this man? No one would confirm that exchange. Yeah, they say he's declined. We've all noticed it, but they all lied to us for many years in order to do that. So the media, as I mentioned, is furious. Here was a fun exchange between CNN and this woman. Here's another leak from her. She's explaining how bad Joe Biden has gotten.
Jessica, we spoke with dozens of Democratic strategists, aides, officials across the Biden administration and across the party at large. And there was one consistent theme, and that was widespread anger and sadness at seeing the president's decline on full display on the debate stage 2 weeks ago after what they chalk up to careful choreography among the president's closest advisors to shield him from public view over the last year or potentially before that. Democrats here in the U.S. tell CNN that when they tried to raise concerns about Biden's age, they were dismissed or worse. And overseas officials tell us that when Biden attended events on the world stage, he appeared exhausted, sometimes needing scheduled downtime. Jessica.
CNN's going hard, man, so they're lacing into him. And Jake Tapper was also doing the same thing. So as I mentioned, they had this story where Joe Biden called into a radio show. Now, they sent the radio show a bunch of pre-scripted answer questions. Ask Joe this, and he'll be able to respond to that one. And they sent that in, and then the radio show explained that to CNN. They said, well, why'd you do that? And they said, well, it's just journalistic, whatever. Turns out they also edited that interview before it went live. Now, Jake Tapper is going to blast him over this, as he should. But would he have done this 3 months ago? Answer, no.
President Biden called in for a radio interview, one of these interviews done to kind of quell concerns and show the president was fine and completely on point. After he did that call, the Biden campaign called that station, asking them to edit out 2 of his answers. Civic Media, Wisconsin Progressive Talk Radio Network, acknowledged that staff took out the Biden campaign's suggested edits, deleting 2 answers from the president's July 3rd interview with host Earl Ingram. The first answer is Biden said, quote, I have more blacks in my administration than any other president, all other presidents combined, and in major positions, cabinet positions. Obviously not an accurate thing to say. The second, when Biden was talking about Trump's past comments about the Central Park.
So was that fake news? Was that a lie? Was that dishonest? What was that? Obviously not accurate. So I don't know if that's gonna matter at all. Now, here's what it sounded like when Joe Biden says he has all the blacks of America in his campaign or whatever. Here's the exchange. So Alex Thompson grabbed this. Here's the audio that the Biden team asked to be removed from the president's interview. The 2 edits were here, and here's one of them. At 5:20, they wanted this removed. Removal of this phrase. Here's from Joe.
In addition to that, I have more blacks in my administration than any other president, all of the presidents combined, and major positions, cabinet positions.
All right. So that's the statement. And I don't know why they deleted it. And the other one at the time at 14:15 in reference to Trump's call for the death penalty for the Central Park 5, the removal of, quote, I I don't know if they even call for their hanging or not, but they said ... convicted of murder. So hanging or not. Did Trump call for the hanging of the Central Park Five? Is that where this is going? So they deleted that too. All right. So, all right. Well, we can't wait for Joe Biden to come out and start talking again. And we're excited to see what that looks like when that drops, but has not gotten underway as of yet. We're still waiting for the president to speak, if that happens anytime soon. But as you can see, Tapper's unhappy about it, really lacing into him. And they also have a bunch of senators who are getting asked about this. Other people on the Hill. What's their reaction with Joe? Should he stick around or should he go? Manu Raju reports from CNN. He was talking to Manchin out there. Here's what Manchin said after meeting on the Hill.
Do you think your colleagues' concerns have been addressed after meeting with these campaign officials?
Well, I mean, they got an awful lot of questions in, and they got a lot of questions answered.
Did they suggest at all that he may drop out? Was there any suggestion?
Not at all.
Not at all. They're saying he's 100% running?
Everything that I heard in there.
And were there any of your colleagues?
So why are they keep asking about it? Yes, he's running. He said he's running. Dr. Jill, who was your favorite person until like 3 weeks ago, she said he's running. Kamala's in. Schumer's in.
Did any of your colleagues urge him to drop out?
Very good meeting.
So, I mean, that...
Inform you on whether you believe Biden can win? Senators have any say in this?
Now, you know I don't run away from the press, right? I gotta go.
But can you just say, was there anybody who said he should step aside for the good of the country?
Very, very
Senator, do you think he should step aside for the good of the country?
very good. Well, I'm just wishing for the health and welfare of the president.
Have you spoken to him personally?
I have not.
Are you planning to?
For sure am.
When? This weekend?
Slam the door on him. Get out of here. All right, so Manchin, he says Joe's staying in, man. He's staying in, not going anywhere, which is good news. We think he should stay in. And here was another exchange from someone else outside the Capitol. C-SPAN was reporting this from Senator Bennett. He's from Colorado. Says, if a question on a clear path to victory. Do you believe that there is one, a clear path to victory, with President Biden on the ticket is the question. Here is the answer.
I don't want to prejudge what they're going to say. We'll see. I think what's on everybody's mind is there a clear path to victory here? And can we honestly say that we're on a path to defeating Donald Trump and holding on to the Senate and holding on to the House of Representatives?
Do you believe that there is one with President Biden on the Democratic ticket?
What I've said is that I think that if things stay as they are, it's likely that Donald Trump will win the election and it will lose the Senate and we'll lose the House.
Are you watching the press conference tonight?
Of course.
Or does that matter?
No, yeah, everything matters.
Are you at a decision point here where you might make the move instead of just saying that you think that he'll lose, but that he should withdraw?
This is not a decision for me to make.
If you called for him to withdraw, that would be a notable thing for you to...
I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have. I appreciate that we're going to have this conversation.
All right, so a bunch of people just really don't want to answer this one way or the other. We know it's basically impossible for them to answer. If they say that Joe Biden has to go or that they don't support him for re-election, then that is a statement of lacking faith. You're saying that his leadership capability right now is not reassuring enough to have you endorse him for a second term. So he has to demur. He can't say, I stand behind him, because he knows that's not the right answer. And he can't say he has to go. Idiots. Here is what Hakeem Jeffries says. And I don't know why he keeps going through this. Joe Biden has been clear and unequivocal. He is running.
NBC News just in the last few minutes moved some reporting that several of President Biden's closest allies now say that he has zero chances of winning. A direct quote is, he needs to drop out. From one Biden campaign official, he will never recover from this. After the week and a half that we've had, do you agree? Is it time?
Throughout this week, as House Democrats, we have engaged in a process of talking to each other. Those conversations have been candid, comprehensive, and clear-eyed.
Wow.
And they continue.
3 C words: candid, comprehensive, and clear-eyed. And look how happy he is that he just nailed that. You see that look on his face, man? He's like, got it.
Until that process has concluded, I'm not going to address what any outside stakeholders may have to say about this matter.
But sir, how much longer can you allow the griping to go on?
Didn't you hear me? I already said 3 C words. What's your follow-up about?
Before it ultimately wounds him.
House Democrats, Senate Democrats, and President Biden are unified on the affirmative agenda that we have for the American people related to lowering housing costs or ending price gouging or growing the middle class, defending democracy, and fighting for reproductive freedom. President Biden, House Democrats, and Senate Democrats are also united in pushing back against Project 2025 and the extreme MAGA Republican agenda. That's unifying, not dividing us.
President Biden has said he's staying in this race, but after your conversations throughout this week, do you think it's time for him to reconsider that based on what you're hearing?
Our conversations have been candid, comprehensive, and clear-eyed, and they are ongoing.
He He did it again. Candid, comprehensive, and clear-eyed. So, all right, that's what is happening. Kamala Harris is going to race to the front of the pack, lead the Democrats to victory, and we're looking forward to seeing that. So Trump campaign now gearing up for Kamala, I guess, because Biden is testing it. We'll see where it goes.